Hey everyone, my name is Lisa Sack. I am a certified Hanna Somatic educator, a yoga therapist, and an Ayurvedic health counselor here in Brooklyn, New York. And in this short video, I want to tell you a little bit about Hanna Somatic Education. So, Hanna Somatic Education was developed by Thomas Hanna back in the late part of the 20th century. Tom Hanna is actually the person who coined the word somatics, which we hear used all the time today. He liked the word because it is from the Greek soma, meaning our entire lived experience in our body. So, Hanna Somatic Education is a system of neuromuscular education or body mind training that uses very slow, very gentle movements of contraction and release to relieve chronic muscular pain and also to reduce stress. Now, if you've ever had a kind of chronic pain situation in your body, you know there are many causes. Sometimes we have an injury that from the acute phase actually turns into chronic pain instead of dissipating. Sometimes there's a structural anomaly in our body that can result in chronic muscular contraction. But one thing that I think many of us don't think about is the impact of our postural habits, the way we stand and sit on our bodies, and the way in which that they can create muscular contraction. So Tom Hanna thought about three very distinct patterns of postural habits, which he called postural reflexes. And I'm going to demonstrate them for you. You're welcome to try them on with me as I describe them. So the first one he called the red light reflex. And this is a pattern where, let's say I'm sitting at a desk, and lots of people who sit at a desk, you may know this for yourself, we tend to kind of contract through the front of our body and we stare at the screen, our head comes forward, and here we are at the keyboard. And so you can see in this pattern, what's happening is the whole front of my body is contracted. I am tending to sort of, if you see me from the front, my knees are starting to come together, my elbows are bent. It's actually a pattern of protection, very necessary from an emotional standpoint to be able to find this and to be able to withdraw from a situation. So that's one postural habit that Tom talked about. The second one that he talked about, he called the green light reflex. And the green light is the opposite of this. It's when we start to do this. So this is somebody where you might see they have a big arch in their back and their shoulders are pulled back. And it's like they're really ready to step out into the world and to accomplish whatever they need to do, kind of almost on high alert. He called this the green light reflex. The third pattern that Tom talked about was called something he called the trauma reflex. Here, if I get into the habit where, let's say I have had an injury on one side of my body, and I start to put all of my weight on the other side because I'm protecting myself from putting weight here, what can start to happen is that I begin to contract through one side of my body. With that pattern can come some rotation in my upper body. There can be rotation in my pelvis. And this is what he called the trauma reflex, where we kind of get short on one side. Now, all of these are necessary, right? In the moment when I have pain, I want to be able to pull away from it. I just don't want to get stuck in any of these positions. Now, the other thing to think about is that most of us are not one pure postural pattern. Sometimes we're a combination where we have an arch in our back and yet our shoulders are rounded forward. So we can have multiple different postural patterns happening in our bodies at the same time. But essentially what happens is that the longer we stay in those postures, the more likely we are to get stuck. And we are teaching ourselves to maintain tightened and constricted muscles. And then our brain just keeps sending messages to our muscles to maintain that contracted position. So eventually we develop what Tom called sensory motor amnesia. Our brains actually forget how to work with and move those muscles, and we forget how to move without experiencing some level of discomfort. And this results in distorted posture, It can make us feel really achy. We can have low back pain. We can have hip pain. We can have all sorts of pain. We can even really fatigue easily. So the more contracted we are, the more likely we are to feel pain. When that contraction pattern is happening here at the center of our body, you can see it's going to pull on my rib cage. It's going to pull on my pelvis. And that is going to make it difficult for me to move and breathe with ease. And then a lot of the activities that I may enjoy doing may suddenly become impossible for me to do because I have discomfort when I try to move. Now, the good news is that Hanna Somatic Education, or HSE, can reverse this sensory motor amnesia. It can help to restore freedom of movement, and you can really feel like yourself again. So not only do you improve mobility with HSE, but you can improve your strength and your coordination as well. And the way I think of this is that the movements that we learn to do when we practice Hanna Somatic Education are foundational to any activity that you might want to do. So that could be a sport. It could be practicing yoga. It could be sitting in meditation. It could be just walking, or activities of daily living, like reaching up into a cabinet to get something or bending over to get something without any pain. So all of these movements are going to make you better able to find ease in your life. And I'll end with one other observation. I think that the beauty of this work is that it does work on all aspects of your soma. In yoga, we might call this working with your subtle anatomy. So you're working with your physical body, your energetic body, you're working with yourself emotionally, even psychologically. And I myself know that, when we have pain, it can create frustration. Sometimes it really engenders fear because we worry that we're not going to be able to resume the activities that we like to do, that we're always going to be this way. And what I found with this work is that you can go from that place of frustration to a place of ease where you feel calmer, you're more spacious in your body, more spacious in your breathing, and eventually really more spacious in your mind. You develop a new sense of awareness. And I found, and I think of a lot of the people that I've worked with have found, that you can start to experience your life as an ongoing adventure of growth, of expansion, of transformation. So it's all done through very simple patterns of movement, of contraction and release. It's all very gentle. And I hope that this inspires you to maybe check out Hanna Somatic Education. And I thank you very much for listening today. And I'm going to say goodbye.